Have you noticed your students are becoming more and more addicted to smartphones and technology? Have you noticed they are more interested in playing video games, texting, and watching Netflix than they are in acquiring a new skill or taking up a new hobby? Why might that be happening? According to Sir Ken Robinson, a key component that is missing in education is creativity, and he feels that instead of promoting creativity, we are systematically educating it out of our kids. So is there a solution? One such idea could be what is known as maker-centered learning. The authors of the book, Maker-Centered Learning, Empowering Young People to Shape Their Worlds, defines maker-centered learning as sharing and learning from others while working with one's hands within interdisciplinary environments that combine a variety of tools and technologies. That's pretty broad. Let's narrow this down so you can get an idea of how you can transfer this to your classroom. First things first, what is a maker? A maker is not something you can be certified to become or some kind of title that you can get, but just someone who makes things. For example, Kevin's dryer broke. It wasn't just drying his clothes anymore. He has some extra money, so should he take it to a repair shop or buy a new dryer? Neither. Kevin goes to YouTube, finds a video to help him determine what is wrong with the dryer. Then he calls the local part supply store to get further information and order the part. 2 days later, Kevin has a working dryer, and he spent only $50. Kevin is a maker. In a society that is focused on consumerism and disposable items, a maker is focused on making things rather than consuming things. A maker sees the designs of the world as flexible jumping-off points. They have a sensitivity to design so that they can see the world as malleable and redesign things for different purposes rather than throw them away once they've lost their original use. A maker can repurpose. A maker also sees a need and fills it. A maker can create. What is maker-centered learning? In general, maker-centered learning can be many things. In the book Maker-Centered Learning, the authors explain that the maker-centered experience can have many different characteristics. But in order to be maker-centered, it does not have to have all of those characteristics. The major factors that maker-centered learning has are collaboration, hands-on creativity, and problem-solving. So why should we do it? Besides the fact that we want our students to make things and be more creative problem solvers, why should we do this maker-centered learning? Well, students are going to develop agency or a can-do-it attitude. Students feel empowered and confident to make choices. They feel that they have some kind of control about how things work in the world around them. They see this problem in the community. Not only do they recognize that there's a problem, but maker-centered learning is designed to teach the students to go out and solve that problem. And they do. They also gain knowledge and skills depending on that project. There's also a big focus on collaboration, and we're not just talking about group work where you have a timekeeper, a recorder, and a group leader. Students, if facilitated well, can learn how to truly collaborate with their peers, working together to create a product. It's a highly sought-after 21st century skill. So how do we do it? Maker-centered learning is not led by a specific organization or a federally funded program. There's not a formulaic way to set up your classroom to become maker-centered. The authors of Maker-Centered Learning did, however, compile a list of some of the strategies that are common in the Maker-Centered Learning community. First of all, what does the teaching look like in the Maker-Centered classroom? Teaching can be done by students, community members, or through research. It's not uncommon for a student to be an expert in the Maker-Centered classroom. The student can teach other students, or even the teacher, specific skills. Community members can also be a great resource in the Maker classroom. Information is at their fingertips because of the beauty of technology. The students can use that technology, even though sometimes it can be the bane of a teacher's existence. It can be extremely resourceful. In the Maker classroom, a YouTube video explaining the steps on how to build something or how to install a specific part in a dryer may save the day. So where does the teacher fit in? The teacher in the classroom becomes a facilitator rather than that all-knowing entity at the front of the classroom. In Maker-Centered Learning, the teacher encourages problem-solving and self-directed learning as well as student collaboration. So what does learning look like in the Maker-Centered classroom? Looks a lot like tinkering and figuring things out. Students in the Maker-Centered classroom may get inspiration from one another's projects. They offer constructive feedback to one another, and one of the overall themes that can be seen is the necessity of failure. The students are risk takers. They're not worried about filling in the blanks and getting the right answer, but they're willing to try, fail, and learn from their mistakes, and try again, and maybe even fail again. They tinker, they figure things out, and they problem solve until they come up with a solution that works. So what does the learning environment look like? The biggest thing is it has to be flexible. There's no specific design that works for every maker-centered classroom. Just like any other classroom, what works best for the teacher and the students is probably best. Some teachers have a list of tools that they feel are important and necessary to run a maker classroom. Some schools have 3D printers. Some don't. What is important is that the classroom is set up so that the students can problem solve, collaborate, and have access to the tools and materials they need to complete whatever project they're working on. You may be asking yourself how you can create a maker-centered classroom. This is not a checklist that has to be completed in order to be maker-centered, nor is this list exhaustive. This is more of a guideline or a jumping-off point. Just as makers are sensitive to design and see the world as malleable, teachers in the maker-centered classroom should see this movement as malleable. There is no formula. It's a work in progress. Get creative, get making, and let the students be your guide.